Alright everyone, it's time for something that could help to end our current moral panic. It's a sort of a loose, malleable, theoretical idea right now as opposed to something that's actually begun to form in a physical manner, in a tangible manner. And that's the concept of an alt-tech alliance. Alt in this sense having to do with simply being alternative, not having to do with alt-left, alt-right, or any of the politically associated terms that are using that general moniker. It's been spoken of by Gab openly, and Gab, in the wake of being partially censored for absolutely, completely no reason in regard to the Charlottesville stuff. Gab gets censored because, oh, there are like white supremacists on your website. Yes, I'm also on Gab. I'm a libertarian. I didn't go there for an echo chamber. I went there because their TOS is not going to kick me off the platform for making a joke that somebody else finds offensive. Their TOS is not going to have me kicked off the platform for saying a dirty word. Unlike Twitter, where there's no actual guarantee under their terms of service that your First Amendment rights will be specifically respected. This is also the case with Minds.com, which is essentially, I don't know exactly what their site's angling for. I can understand why it's growing rapidly because it's synthesized from a bunch of different sort of sites. Part of it is video hosting, but it looks more like G+ had a baby with Facebook, and it's also got some basic Twitter functionality. So I don't know, it's like the first true synthesis website, like post-social media site. It's a model, I think, that's going to become more popular over time, as opposed to a tech firm having, like Google. Google has, well, we have Blogger, and we have the ad platform, and we have video hosting, and we have the browser, and we have the App Store, and we have this other platform, and here's a dozen others, as opposed to having them more or less semi-separate, at least under the same umbrella, synthesizing them together into one cohesive site, I think is the wave of the future. That and decentralized internet productions and sites and platforms. Stuff like BitChute, that's the first wave. Torrent-based video hosting. If it's shown that it can work and it can become popularized, probably in association with something off-site that's also embedding material and allowing for the user account and the comments and stuff, spreading things around more easily. That's the next wave of communications technology, I believe. It's going to be much harder to censor, much less centralized, much more lucrative, by the way, for the firms doing these things. They could potentially, many of them will lower their own bottom line cost as well. But alt-tech also involves Patreon, which was also censored in the wake of the bullshit going on right now. It's a moral panic. The Patreon literally has nothing to do with hate. Their TOS just say, hey, if you say something offensive, that alone is not grounds for removal from our platform. I use it. Many others use it. Yeah, there are alt-righters there. I'm sure there will be progressives there in due time, too. The fact that you're using that platform is really more saying, hey, Patreon has made it clear that they're not necessarily going to allow, you know, all non-violent individuals who are not committing crimes to use their crowdfunding. As such, why wouldn't you want to have another site that you're using? And I see that they got attacked because their defensive services abandoned them. Gab, same story. I'm surprised nobody went after Minds. We've gotten to the point where if somebody says something that could be construed by any part of the legacy media as being offensive, they'll take a screenshot of you from your video where you're simply saying hi, and they'll say, oh, look, they're doing a Nazi salute, and pretty soon 1 million people will pile aboard you. This happened to PewDiePie. Of all people, yes, PewDiePie, the next Adolf Hitler, I guess. Alt-tech, what that's about, are services that are offering basically the same functionality as the older guard social media firms. It's the displacement of social media. And because it's novel, and because it has a good idea behind it, I believe that it will take off. It will slowly gobble up more and more market support online. I do believe that. Don't think that any of these big tech firms, social media or otherwise, are too big to lose off some of their audience as they get supplanted by other well-run services. Gab, in the wake of being censored, raised an inordinate amount of money in only a single day. what was it, 750,000 or some insane total like that? You know how long that'll allow them to run their service? Quite some time. Patreon will become more popular. Whatever is suppressed becomes more popular. It is an enormous mistake for the big tech firms in direct collusion with these security firms that they work with and that they give an inordinate amount of money and traffic to. It's a huge mistake for them to directly target these sites. If they didn't target them, well, yeah, it would rely on word of mouth to spread around that they even exist. A lot of people don't know there's a Gab. A lot of people don't know about Minds. A lot of people don't know about VidMe or BitChute or Steemit or Patreon or any of these others. I think there's another one called LibraPay or something like that. I'll have to go back and see what the actual site is. What alt tech represents is a departure from an increasingly centralized social media. It's actually more a return to the early wave of social media than it is a displacement thereof. It's taking the same idea but permanently capping the amount of censorship and interference on these sites, on these platforms, to displace the old tech giants' hegemony with competition. It's actually a very pro-free market, pro-liberty move. It's not a pro-far-right move. The far right, as it's envisioned by the alt-right, has nothing to do with the free market. Half these people are telling me how much they love socialism. Is there something like, yeah, we love socialism just within the confines of an ethno-state. That's going to work. Yeah, like socialism won't devour itself over time like it's always done before and become more and more bureaucratic and eventually rot the state from within. This is a free market move. It's essentially saying, hey, we can take this basic idea, tinker around with it, provide a different TOS that's more novel, provide more of an inclusive user approach, and there you go, you've got alt tech. That's all you need to do. Gab is skyrocketing with growth right now. It doesn't matter if somebody tries to censor them, they're not going anywhere. They got too much money at this point to go anywhere. They'll keep growing, and as long as their economic model is stable, as long as that part works, they'll continue to grow. And any attempt to suppress them will in turn make them grow even faster. Pretty soon, you can envision a future in a few years where Twitter has basically collapsed and Gab has drawn even with it and has, tens of millions of active users. You can envision a scenario like that. And Minds started growing, even when it's not spoken of, it continues to grow. And that's not really gobbling up the far right. That's gobbling up a hell of a lot of libertarian support, too. Minds, I think, is ultimately the largest and at the most of the forefront of alt tech. It has the most synthesized approach. Gab would be a close second, especially now that they're going to be able to massively expand. They'll put out ad campaigns, probably. New types of crowdfunding will certainly rise up. And it's a good thing, I think, for the tech world. It's essentially saying, hey, you can spread things around, make content, talk about content, give opinions. You're not just limited to those same 3 or 4 really big tech firms anymore. Essentially, for a while there, it got to the point where if you made a video, it was on YouTube. If you made a page, it was on Facebook. If you were talking in text only primarily, or putting out live updates via picture, it was on Twitter. Instagram is just, Facebook 2.0 in more of a pictorial form at this point, so I'm not sure that counts. So you've got this situation where you've got 3 or 4 big tech monopolies running most of the services people use. Increasingly, though, when they become centralized, as any other form of technology does, and they all do, like TV, something novel comes along, adapts the technology in some way. The early internet became more centralized. Social media really helped to decentralize it. All of a sudden you had hundreds of thousands of major content creators all across the world who have joined in and sort of supplanted the old guard standalone website model. That was already, the Facebooks and YouTubes were already part of a technological paradigm shift. It just didn't overlap with the moral panic. Now we have one that is, and alt tech, I believe, synthesizing and also fiddling around with basic functionality, will eventually become more popular than the big tech firms that exist now. I'm not joking when I say that. You may think that it can't happen, but there were certainly people early on, for the first year or so, Facebook was around when it was competing with MySpace, which was essentially more of the old style of internet at the time. There were plenty of people who thought Facebook would never make it. Zuckerberg himself thought he wouldn't make it. He almost screwed his own company into the ground. It was by the skin of his teeth that he continued to persist, otherwise he wouldn't even have a Facebook. YouTube had grown insolvent, almost didn't make it, ended up having to get gobbled up by another web firm that in turn was seen as the junior partner of Yahoo at the time. That's the way that the tech world works. It's shift. It's you looked, somebody, I saw a post. Somebody got like an internet manual from the mid-90s, and they checked all the URLs and they found none of them were still online. Some of those were big things at the time. AOL used to be a really big thing. American Online Messenger and stuff like that. Skype used to be hegemonic. Now it's being displaced by Discord and other services as well. The way in which recording happens is different. Everything has changed. Now, mostly that's a good thing, because it keeps the internet keeps renewing itself in form over and over. Monopolies are broken up. It's like people that are saying bust up Google because it's a monopoly. You're not going to have to. Giving the government control is a terrible idea. You're not going to have to do that. They'll face, as long as they strangulate things and are in favor of intervening in everything, they will become less efficient than potential competitors are. They will then either reform, which is my hope, because I fucking love YouTube. My hope is that they reform their model. They say, okay, panic is over. We're going back to stability. Enough is enough of all this bull crap we're having to deal with. We're tired of having to deal with it. We got plenty of money. We don't have to bow down before your censorship wishes. That's my hope. But at the same time, these competitors will still continue to rise. It's inevitable. That change is inevitable. People thinking that the current internet is the end-all, be-all and stays the same forever, my goodness, you know nothing about human history. It's never been that way. And it never will happen. It doesn't matter how much money these firms have or how monopolistic they are. They will, in time, fall by the wayside. My only hope is that means it doesn't mean YouTube stops existing, because I like it so much as a platform. I just hope that they stop with all the crummy crap that they're doing, pushing their political agenda and their social agenda and cracking down on things. The AI algorithm stuff is not popular. I see this among people on the left because it's impacting them now. And by the way, that prediction was true. This is not an attempt by Google to solely screw people who happen to be on the right. It's an attempt to screw anyone who has intelligent conversations. That includes a lot of progressive commentators. But then again, it also includes weightlifting and makeup and ASMR channels too, as far as their demonetization and hiding of related videos goes. So yeah, it's impacted the entire platform in a very negative manner. No wonder that alt media is springing up. Why do you think VidMe is growing seemingly so quickly? It's not even that markedly different in its TOS. From YouTube, it's not even really alt media. I mean, alt tech. It's not even really part of that sort of pro-free speech approach that's increasingly being used. And yet it's still skyrocketing. Hell, the number of people I've got following me on VidMe at this point is more than I had following me on YouTube just last year already. I've only been on the platform for, what, have I been there for 7 months maybe? I mean, it's an insane amount of growth, and that's not all people who are joining me there from YouTube. There are a lot of people that are using VidMe. They've never even used YouTube as a service. The paradigm shift is already here. It's going to be ongoing. These big tech firms should follow the model of these newer competitors if they want to maintain relevance. That's what they always should have done in the past too. If you modernize, if you go kind of with the underground flow, which becomes the next mainstream, you can preserve yourself. That means less censorship. It certainly doesn't mean distorting and intervening in things. It means attempting to give creators more control and decentralizing yourself in a way. You can actually make more money doing that, by the way. Google could make a mountain of cash off of a site like YouTube with a few tweaks. You know, all they have to do is ask like the people at BitChute or VidMe how to do that, and I'm sure that they would get plenty of good advice. Maybe. Maybe they wouldn't want to share their proprietary secrets. But yeah, that's the direction that the internet and tech in general are going in. We saw the forebearer of this with, I think, 3D printing and with drones and stuff. Again, very decentralized. The government's trying to crack down continuously to make it non-functioning. That's what they always do. But look at all of the advances that were made in science just because drones happen to become cheap enough to exist in private hands. Now universities deploy them for all sorts of scientific stuff. Germany uses flamethrower drones to clear vines off of power lines now. Could you have imagined that 10 years ago? People slap a couple drones and a scaffold together and they have their own hoverbike. It's sort of the way things are going in the world today. Isn't that cool? I think it is a little bit like being in a steampunk Jetsons or something like that. But alt tech is a very good thing. It's inarguably good. At the very least, even if these firms never gained full dominance, they provide competition, which is healthy and it's good when you have competition to the bigger firms. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody comes along and starts attempting to directly compete for self-publishing a la Amazon. With a new platform and strategy. Of course, I use It's like people are like, well, why don't you call out Jeff Bezos? Well, I don't have a problem with Amazon. Monopolistic, yes. Sometimes perhaps abusive business practices, yeah, maybe so. But they also provide a very good service. The flow of information in literary form is really CreateSpace working with Amazon really does help that for people's self-publishing. It wouldn't have been possible for me to release most of my works to any great degree if it weren't for that platform. That's almost a little bit alt tech in and of itself. I wouldn't be surprised if it gets adapted by other firms. I mean, it's a wide open field for them to do that. With a few tweaks, they can do so. But yeah, it's a good thing. What Gab is doing is good. What Minds is doing is good. Now, the natural moral panic-driven reaction to this is that the big tech firms are trying to claim that they're part of a secret army of Nazis. That social panic will fall apart. If they can weather the storm for long enough, they will emerge victorious. That moral social panic goes away, and people realize, oh yeah, there never actually was such a secret uprising. There never was really a reason to be panicked. It was always just a handful of skinheads throwing rocks at people. That's what it will emerge as. It's just like the Russian bullshit. People in the future are going to look back at this era, and you can already see them beginning to abandon the Russian line, by the way, in favor of the Nazi line. I wonder why they're doing that. Could it be that they know that it's not actually going to stick long term? That will be seen as the first generation of a moral panic that was never true. It will be discredited in due time, and those of us who always pointed out that it was discredited and had no validity whatsoever, we will be the ones that will be seen as, historically, we will be the ones favored, because we were right all along. That's about all. Peace out.